Final Fantasy XIV has gotten many job changes throughout the years, some good, some bad. Sometimes a simplification was done for the best, and other times it made something that was interesting to work with a bit bland. For this video's cursed changes, I want to make a simplification of each job with the express intent of taking the light out of the job. So if you hate a change, good. That's the point. Let's get to it. Warrior. Enhanced Infuriate now instead simply reduces the cooldown of Infuriate to a fixed 40 seconds. It no longer reduces the cooldown when using Fell Cleave or Decimate. The baked-in effect of reducing the cooldown on Inner Chaos and Chaotic Cyclone are also removed. This guarantees that every odd minute burst has 1 Infuriate, while the even minute has 2, like so many other jobs have nowadays. Interestingly, back in Stormblood where this trait was added, Astrologian got a similar trait that made Essential Dignity reduce the cooldown of Lightspeed, which eventually was reworked to simply reduce Lightspeed's cooldown to a lower fixed amount. In practice, the existing Enhanced Infuriate trait tends to lead warriors to have nearly exactly the same setup anyway, with some super specific cases where they might get 3 Infuriates into a burst potion window. White Mage. Aero, Aero 2, and Dia are removed. Instead, Stone 1, 2, 3, 4, and Glare 1 and 3 are now instant cast. To help make attacking easier for healers, White Mage no longer needs to maintain a dot. As the dot itself served as a mobility option, their primary filler has been made instant to make attacking easier once again. Black Mage. Transpose has been removed. Instead, Umbral Soul is learned at level 4, and when used in combat, it is instead a channeled action that increases Umbral Ice and Umbral Hearts by 1 every 3 seconds, starting at 1 on the first tick when used from Astral Fire. Using Fire 1 or Blizzard 1 from the opposite state always starts you at 1 rather than removing your state. Every time we try to make Black Mage easy and straightforward, something weird comes up thanks to Transpose. People are finding ways to avoid using Fire 2 and Blizzard 2 entirely and wasting mobility options on casting Blizzard 3 after Transpose. And they aren't using Firestarter for the big damage numbers. We need to put a stop to it, and the easiest way is to simply get rid of Transpose entirely. Viper. The Serpent Offerings gauge is removed. Instead, Reawaken has 2 charges and gains 1 every 40 seconds. Serpent's Ire instead simply grants a Rattling Coil. To alleviate some of the issues Viper faces when dealing with extended downtime, or dying, instead of needing to build up to their burst, we instead simply give them the exact amount of bursts we expect them to get every 2 minutes. You know the drill, 1 on the odd minute, 2 on the even. This even resolves the problem that they couldn't do 2 in the opener. Amazing, right? Machinist. Automaton Queen is now just a 2-minute cooldown. The battery gauge is removed as it is no longer needed. The Queen's potencies are adjusted to compensate. To help let Machinists be a bit less concerned about perfectly spreadsheeting their rotations to perfectly optimize their Automaton Queens, we instead remove that problem entirely. What do you mean it offered flexibility? Monk. Demolish now also only grants 1 orb, and you can only hold 1 of its orb type. The potency offered by it is increased to match with Twin Snakes. To further streamline the Monk rotation, we decided that there is no need for the weird detail that the 3rd step is 2 orbs. Now you can just alternate between 2 different combos all the time. What? Perfect balance makes this not entirely true? Bah, what do you know? Gunbreaker. Cartridges have been removed. Instead, cartridge spenders are free. Burst Strike now has 2 charges and recharges 1 every 30 seconds. Fated Circle shares cooldown with Burst Strike. Bloodfest instantly refreshes both charges as part of its effect. We noticed how much simpler it became to be a Gunbreaker when we reduced the amount of cartridges they used by 1 per minute, so we thought, how about going all in on that? Now Gunbreakers don't have to worry about not having enough cartridges due to downtime, ever! Not to mention, every burst can be filled with plenty of Burst Strikes. In fact, you probably finally get to use Burst Strike a bit more outside of bursts now. Maybe? I don't know. Astrologian. Combust 1, 2, and 3 are removed. Instead, Malefic 1, 2, 3, 4, and Fall Malefic are now instant. We should probably also review the value in keeping Lightspeed around, considering it is a bit pointless now, right? maybe next patch. Similar to White Mage, we decided that dots are simply not something healers should have to worry about. Attacking should be simple and easy for a healer, so instant it becomes Dragoon. Life Surge is removed. That's all. Nothing is added to replace it. Often, Dragoons complain about Life Surge being awkward to use, and also boring to use. Back when we made Nathrond only one charge, many suggested we should have removed Life Surge instead. Well, part of your wish is our command. Here you go. I'm sure this won't make the interaction between the weapon skills and abilities seem completely disconnected and weird. Summoner. Summons, ironically, are removed. Carbuncle can no longer be summoned, and instead the user produces Radiant Aegis. Instead of summoning Ifrit, Titan or Garuda, the attacks strike immediately upon cast, instead from the user. Bahamut and Phoenix no longer attack, and your spells are buffed instead. Enkindle, Bahamut and Phoenix are also replaced with the attacks they use. And you use them. A very common problem summoners run into is that their summons add a delay to the use of their actions. Because summons are pets and pets scale weird with player stats and also don't snapshot buffs, it adds a lot of jank to the summoner job. We've reviewed our options, and the easiest way to fix everything is just delete the summons. There you go. Now summoner's probably going to be a lot more competitive. Right? Surely. Dancer. Esprit is now exclusively generated by the dancer itself. The chaotic nature of how Esprit is generated can make dance rotations rather unpredictable. Ignore the part where the whole filler rotation and dances are also unpredictable. So to alleviate that, we've given full control to the dance on Esprit. This also makes the fact Telana gives you half a gage's worth less of an issue, right? And now that you can know exactly how much Esprit you have when, you can even stockpile it a bit easier. Great, right? Samurai. Higanbana is reworked to no longer apply a dot. It is a distinctly weaker option than Midare Setsugeka and still does not activate Tsubamegaishi. Managing a dot alongside such a rotation is really complicated. By removing Higanbana, Samurai's general rotation is greatly simplified as you don't have this 1-minute clock ticking over your head anymore. And if you do, then Higanbana now serves as an excellent way to adjust your combo timing just right for the bursts. Paladin. The Oath gauge is removed. Instead, Sheltron and Holy Sheltron have 2 charges and a charge time of 25 seconds. Intervention shares cooldown with them, and cover is now free. While this is a slight nerf to the amount of Sheltrons you get with full uptime, it is a buff to how many you get when there is downtime. Besides, it is just way easier to manage this as a cooldown instead of as a gauge, right? Besides, also, Paladin keeps the ability to use 2 of them over the other tanks. Pictomancer. Holy in White is buffed just enough that it is now worth it to never overcap on white paint. With the recent change making regular use of striking Muse complicated or outright bad, we noticed that since Holy and White is also barely not worth using, Pictomancers have very few mobility options. To rectify this, instead of buffing hammer stamp combos like you would have expected us to, instead, we buff Holy and White. Now, you don't have to lose out on white paint. Make sure it all gets spent. Sage. If creation doses 1, 2, and 3 are removed, if creation disgracias also removed. Instead, doses 1, 2, and 3 are now instant. Keeping with our new healer vision, Sage is also getting its maintained dots removed, and it has multiple. A funny new thing Sages can experiment with now is the fact that since none of their attacks use Iftracia, they can sneak in an Iftracia to stock it for later if they like, and then just go back to spamming those instant doses casts for the free mobility. Reaper. The Shroud gauge has been removed. Instead, Enshroud has 2 charges and generate 1 every 40 seconds. Plentiful Harvest now simply primes your next Enshroud to give access to Perfectio, but does not grant an additional Enshroud. Many Reaper players mentioned they had a minor issue with not generating enough gauge to keep up 3 Enshrouds per 2 minutes. Not to mention, just like for Viper, we felt this change removing any downtime concerns from the Reapers was the easiest way to solve this. Now they definitely get 3 Enshrouds every 2 minutes. Dark Knight. Living Shadow is no longer a separate summon. Instead, similar to Ninja's Bunshin, Living Shadow buffs your next 6 weapon skills or spells to strike an additional time for some potency. These attacks also generate 200 MP each, as well as 5 blood gauge. A problem Living Shadow has had since Dawntrail is that if its target runs away, it ends up just using Shadow Stride a whole bunch. To fix this, we decided to just attach the Shadow to the Dark Knight so that it can do the damage alongside with them. Many Dark Knights also wanted some of the MP generation they used to have an Endwalker back, and while this isn't all of it, it is some of it. Scholar. Bio 1, 2, and Biolysis are removed. Instead, Ruin and Broil 1, 2, 3, and 4 are now instant. Additionally, Ruin 2 for Scholar has been removed as it serves no purpose. Keeping with our vision of simplifying the attack rotation for healers, we have also removed dots from Scholar. No Baneful Impaction does not count, you are not maintaining that anyway. Ninja. Trick Attack and Kunai's Bane can now be used without being hidden or benefiting from Shadow Walker. As this removes the purpose of Huton and Suiton, not to mention Fjorton was barely useful anyway, these, as well as Mudra Signs, have been removed altogether. Instead, Kuma Shuriken is learned at level 30, upgrading to Raiton at level 35, alongside learning Katon. Doton is learned at level 45. When Kasatsu is used at appropriate levels, Raiton automatically turns into Yoshoranryu. Tenjijin now instead simply allows you to fire 3 jutsus back to back. Oh, also, Mesui is also removed. Quite a bit of an avalanche of changes, right? Remove one piece and the whole tower crumbles. Many, surely ninja mains, often complained that memorizing the specific sequences to get the jutsu they need is too hard. Besides, Trick Attack being nearly unusable until level 45 is a bit weird when the action is learned at level 18, and this also solves that. By making these changes, we ended up cutting a lot of fat, and now ninjas can access ninjutsus they actually use directly. Isn't that much easier and so much more fun? Red Mage. Melee combos now instead hold up to 2 charges and gain 1 every 40 seconds, initiated with either Riposte or Moulinet. Modification has been reworked to instead be a temporary personal damage buff on a 2-minute cooldown, and it immediately turns into Prefulgence on use, so you can access it during the burst. Black and white magic spells now instead incentivize alternating use of them by giving each other a slight damage boost when used, similar to Reaper's Reaps. This is tracked in the balance gauge. Similar to some of the other jobs, where their burst could be negatively impacted or ruined by too much downtime, Red Mage also needed this change to be sure they can have their double melee combos in the even minute, and then one during the odd minute. Of course, by entirely removing black and white mana, we needed to add a new purpose so you don't just spam the thunder because it looks cooler. Modification also is freed up to instead just be a damage buff. And finally, Bard. Your songs are now completely automated. While in combat, each song plays 40 seconds at a time, in order: Wanderer's Minuet, Mage's Ballad, Army's Paean. They instead tick every 2.5 seconds, but skip one whenever the song changes, leading to 45 ticks per 2-minute loop. At lower levels, it starts with Mage's Ballad and simply has 40 seconds of nothing whenever you don't yet have the song. So many bards have complained about how the songs can drift apart so they don't align right, or worse, you have time without a song. Gasp! So to fix this issue, we have finally completely automated the process. What do you mean now the rotation is even less flexible? I'm sure it'll be great. So, I hope you found some of these suggested changes either funny, concerning, or somehow soothing? Considering I feel like most of these changes demonstrate how bad some of the simplifying job changes could be, but also demonstrate a point that I at least cannot imagine Final Fantasy XIV would ever reach. Who needs gauges, right? Anyway, I would love to hear which ones were your favorites, or your ideas for cursed changes for jobs, in the comments. Now, that is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to support me and my channel more directly, you can become a member like these wonderful people here. You can also alternatively support me through Ko-Fi, link in the description. You can also support the channel by letting the YouTube algorithm know by liking the video, leaving a comment, subscribing, sharing, and hitting the bell to get notified when next I post a video. Fun fact, many of the "now your gauge is just a cooldown" changes that I suggested in this video are basically already there in PvP. Red Mage's melee combo is a cooldown, Reaper's Enshroud is a limit break, technically a cooldown, Viper's Reawaken is kind of their limit break. There are no real gauges and so build or spenders in the same way in PvP, so, you know, some of these things are already in the game.